Hello again, it's the OhioRAAM Show coming to you from Southwest Ohio. Today we have a very different kind of show. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But we're going to be traveling over to Columbus, Ohio to see a very special bicycle shop. Our show is sponsored by the first two time stations you run across in Ohio when you're doing the race across America, the time station at Oxford, Ohio, and Blanchester, Ohio. These time stations are staffed around the clock, 24 hours a day. They're there for the fans who want to come by and see the race, but they're there also for the racers, for the crews, for the officials, for the media crews, to help you along your way as you race coast to coast in the toughest bicycle race in the world. Hello, my name is Lee Kreider. I host this show. Just a number of things before we get started. First of all, there will be some people watching this show who are not familiar with some of the terms we use, and I just want to take a moment to talk about those. In the show, you're going to be hearing the term TOSRV. T-O-S-R-V is what that is. That stands for Tour of the Scioto River Valley. This is a tour that has gone on for, well, I think more than 50 years. Starts at the State House Capitol in Columbus, Ohio, and goes to Portsmouth on a Saturday and comes back on a Sunday. It's always on Mother's Day, more's the pity. 200-mile ride, and you'll hear some chatter about that during the course of this show. I think I've done that ride maybe close to 25 times. Someday I ought to count it and just see how many times I've done it. I've enjoyed it a great deal. But we'll be talking about that, and that's what we mean by TOSRV, Tour of the Scioto River Valley. The other term we use quite frequently is RAAM, R-A-A-M, and that stands for the Race Across America. Most of you who watch the show knows exactly what this is all about, but there's always some new people, and there may be several new people for this. The Race Across America is the coast-to-coast bicycle race. Happens in June each year, and it goes from Oceanside, California to Annapolis, Maryland, a distance of 3,000 miles. Unlike the Tour de France or other rides like that, this race, once it starts, the clock never stops. The Race Across America is about 50% longer than the Tour de France, and also the winner will do it in probably about 1/3 the time. To win the race, you have to be able to ride day and night, sleeping a very little bit. We used to say that you had to spend 22 hours on the bike to win it. That's changing. It looks like I'm going to have to say it's 21 hours now, because 23 hours, because the race has just become tighter and tighter. And to finish the race in the 12 days time, you're probably going to have to spend around 20 hours a day on the bicycle. Then there are teams also, 2-person, 4-person, and 8-person teams of various ages, some male, some female, some mixed, and these people will have to do it in a time limit of 8 days. So we'll be using those terms. The other thing I need to say before we get into the show is I did something that no producer of media ought ever to do. I used a new piece of equipment with some new settings, and I didn't realize it until I was done that I was having some focusing issues because I had changed the settings on my camera, and I was using a lens that works fine for still photography, but it just doesn't track as it should for video. Perhaps this is due in part to the fact that I had the wrong servo setting, and those of you who are into video and photography know exactly what I'm talking about. But you're going to see some bad shots that there's some poor focusing going on. I apologize for that, but I think this show, what I have here, is worthwhile seeing, even that. I want to thank my camera operator, my videographer, Chuck Stiver, for the work he did, and quickly say that this was not Chuck's fault. I was the one who did this. I thought something I read on the internet made sense to me, and I did what you should never do. I did change the settings and didn't test it. And you can believe me, I won't do that again. That said, we're going to go over to Columbus to the Church for All People, who have a bicycle shop which is called Bikes for All People. But the early part of the show, we're going to have some people from the Major Taylor Cycling Club in Columbus on. They're three of them, and their interviews are going to look a little bit disjointed because during the afternoon, the hours that we were there, they came in at different times, a couple hours apart for each one of them, and I caught them as I could. But I'm going to paste them all together here so we can learn a little bit about the Major Taylor Cycling Club. I had the Major Taylor Club from San Diego on last spring, but we're very tickled to have these three gentlemen come in and talk to us a little bit about what Major Taylor is all about and to enjoy something about Bikes for All People. So thank you for watching and enjoy this show. Well, I'm here with your name?
Robert Bradley.
Robert Bradley, and you are with the Major Taylor Club here in Columbus.
Yes, I am. I'm the secretary, as a matter of fact.
Okay, and I have a great interest in Major Taylor. As I was telling you ahead of time, I rode with your club on the very first tour of the Scioto River Valley you ever did.
Oh, wow. That was back in 79.
1979, and as I was telling you, ride with you with maybe a little bit of exaggeration. The team had a nice pace line. They passed me. I grabbed onto the back. And after a couple of miles, I said, that's enough of that.
I suppose we're renowned for our pace line, so to speak, because they used to get quite extensive in length, too.
They were, and it was kind of like a military operation.
Well, we tried to operate somewhat with some kind of order.
Now, I've had Major Taylor, the San Diego Club, on the show as we were talking about a book that was written about Major Taylor in Australia. But let's just talk a little bit about who was Major Taylor and why we have that name for your club.
Well, we chose him as our name moniker because he was the first black world champion in cycling. I think the second black world champion in any sport. There was a boxer, and I can't think of his name, that preceded him. Major was born in 1878 and was world champion 1901, maybe through 03. In the sprint and the mile was his expertise.
Right, and back here on the table we have a book about Major Taylor, and in the show I did with the San Diego Club, we were to have the gentleman from Australia on who had written a book about his riding in Australia. Something happened that he couldn't get on the air. But what I'm going to do on the show notes for the show, right below where you're looking here, down here somewhere, I'll put links to those books. So if people would like to learn more about Major Taylor.
Yes.
But what can you tell me about his exploits?
Well, generally speaking, in the turn of the century America, blacks weren't allowed to participate in cycling, but for a few locations. I think excluded entirely in the South. I think he moved from Indianapolis to Worcester, Massachusetts, just so he could race. His religious conviction was such that he would never race on Sunday, and I think they estimated over his racing career that he may have lost $3 to $4 million by just not racing on Sunday, which in turn of the century dollars is a tremendous amount of money. Overall, just a grand person in terms of character, believed in wholesome living, non-cheating, support of the wife and family. Very inspirational guy, and I think well chosen for all the clubs across America now that are chosen his name to represent.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute, but I believe I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I believe in 1903, Ty Cobb was the highest paid baseball player. there was only two professional sports, baseball and cycling. And Ty Cobb was the highest paid baseball player. He earned that year $10,000, and Major Taylor earned $50,000.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's in the book that I tell you about from Australia, just to show how big bicycle racing was.
At the turn of the century?
Yeah, at the turn of the century, and he was quite a star in Europe.
Yes, very much so. I think for the most part he gained most of his acclaim in Europe and Australia racing. Again, the European public he felt were more tolerant of his race being a black man than in here in America. And he didn't have to subject himself or his family to, I guess, racial issues.
Yeah, and the Australia book is kind of interesting because Australia did have a lot of prejudice, and yet he was able to overcome that. He had, I guess, to say, a good year and a bad year in Australia. And that's kind of an interesting book. Well, tell me, now the club here was founded in 1979.
Well, I say 1978, but on record 1979, yes. We've probably got 70% of those same guys in the club today. Very small turnover, and we're very active now. Just in the Columbus area, we go on kind of regional bike rides throughout the country, representing, so to speak. And I probably have 4 clubs that we're strongly affiliated with, and I don't know how many Major Taylor clubs there are across the country now. Probably close to 50, I would imagine.
Well, I know there's one in Dayton. I don't know how large it is. And there's one in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I know of. And, of course, the one in San Diego. And how big a club do you have here?
Our members about 35 members, I'd say.
And it's a diversified club, is it not?
Yes, racially diversified in terms of age as well. I'm the senior citizen, the oldest member in the club, let's say, and I'm 70, and I think our youngest member, well, we have some of our members' children are now participating, so I don't know if I want to go that deep. But, yeah, a lot of different professions involved. I'm retired. I think a third of us maybe at this point. But very diversified. And
you have a national organization, do you not?
Well, not we, but there is a national umbrella that kind of represents all the major clubs in the country, yes.
Okay, well, we want to thank you for your time here. I was hoping that you'd bring one of your really nice jerseys, and I have this photograph, only I think it's mirror image of it, and it'll be on the show. People can see it. It'll probably be up in front of it right now. We'll let you see what Major Taylor, he was fit, was he not?
Very much so. Some of the photos I've seen of his physique are astounding, just to say what he was doing riding a bicycle.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, that the bikes that we see in the Tour de France or other races today aren't a lot different from that bike right there.
Not much at all. I think the materials that they use today and then some of the aerodynamic approaches are, but you still got 3 wheels back, actually, 2 on the ground and 1 that you turn.
That's right, and it seemed like a design that seemed to work. They tinker with it, improve it. But, he also designed a special set of handlebars.
Yes, I think, what actually was the stem that was, you could adjust the stem fore and aft for different positions on the bike. Yes. That was
his invention. And well, thank you again for being with us here.
Oh, my pleasure.
We appreciate your time. And
anytime.
Like I said, down below here, you'll see in the show notes.
Our website, we have a website.
I'll put your website on there, and I'll put some links to these books about Major Taylor. Because I have to say, I had never heard of the name Major Taylor before 1979, and I saw your team.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, who is that? And I may have talked to one of them. I know before the ride was over, I had some idea of who he was, and I kind of had an interest in following
that's
his.
Odd that you mentioned that.
I think the name kind of went into. It kind of got lost for a while, didn't it?
Well, if you mean Major Taylor's name,
yes.
Well, that's part of the reason we chose him to name our club after. because of that, because it was very obscure. One of the guys picked up a book called The Fastest Bicycle Ride in the World or something, and after we read that, it was on. He had to be the one.
Now, I believe Columbus was the first club, was it not?
Yes. Across the country.
Okay. Thank you again for being with us.
My pleasure.
Okay, and I'm here with another member of the Major Taylor Club. Your name?
George Harper, president of Major Taylor Cycling Club.
And you've been out doing some spin classes. Tell me what you're about.
Well, it's just wintertime, weather starts getting bad. We go to indoor training programs, and I teach a spin class at the Eastside Y. And right now we're training for a bike-a-thon, a 2-hour bike-a-thon that they're going to be happening November 8th as a fundraiser for cancer survivors, a YMCA program.
Okay, and how long have you been involved with Major Taylor?
Since its inception back in 1979, I was one of the founding members, along with Mr. Bradley and John Talbert, Lloyd Pate, and a guy by the name of Bill Willis. We got together back in 79 and kind of brought the club together.
And by any chance, were you doing Tozerv in 1979?
This was our first year. Yeah, that's when we...
And I was telling Bradley here that's where I got interested in Major Taylor when I saw the name.
Really?
And I tried to ride with you a little bit. I followed your pace line for a couple miles, and I said, "Oh no, I'll let you guys go."
Oh yeah. That's what we used to have a pretty good reputation for riding a pretty fast pace line, but we didn't slow down a little bit now, so you could probably hang with us for sure.
Well, I've slowed down quite a bit, so. Well, listen, it's nice to talk with you, and we appreciate what you do. And
Okay.
we think that's a tremendous service you render to the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And we have another member of the Major Taylor here. Your name is?
Adrian Lee.
Adrian Lee. Well, my first name's Lee.
Okay.
And I just heard you're a retired firefighter?
Yes.
And how long have you been in Major Taylor?
About 5 years.
Can you just speak up just a little bit?
About 5 years.
Okay. And how much riding do you do?
As much as my body allows. I'm retired, so I get quite a bit of time.
Okay. And what fascinated me, you just walk in the shop here, get a shot of this, and in case you can't see it, I cycle so I don't choke people.
As I told you, I was about 325 at my heaviest, and now I'm to about 275, and a lot of it's been cycling. It's lowered my blood pressure and my cholesterol, so it's pretty much made me a lot healthier. So it's saving my life, and it's definitely lowering my stress level, so I don't feel like gripping people.
Well, I was talking to your president here a little bit ago, and I was kind of prodding him to have Major Taylor think about putting together a 4-person team for the race across America.
That would be nice. They have the people.
Well, now think about that. There'd be a lot of publicity, and that'd be a good thing. You'd find a lot of support.
Well, like I said, that'd be a good thing. I know George would be the one to talk to because he is the president, and we would all rally behind him. I've only seen one rider bigger than me, so they love riding behind me until I run out of gas, and then they just leave me.
Yeah, you would be a good person to follow.
Yeah, I found that out when everybody disappeared behind me. Then I'm like, okay, I get it now. But like I said, when I'm tired, then they just blow me off and wait for me at the finish line.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm here with 2 people who are involved in this. What's the name of this shop again?
Bikes for All People.
Bikes for All People. I got to get that correct because it's just a little hard to trip over my tongue a little bit. And you are?
Caitlin Hansen.
And Caitlin, you are somebody special here in the shop.
I'm president of the board of trustees for Bikes for All People.
And how long has this project been going on?
We launched on Labor Day with our opening ride together.
All right. And if I were to ask you what Bikes for All People is about, What could you tell me in a couple sentences?
Well, we're bringing folks together from all over the South Side that bike for different reasons. Folks that commute, folks that like to bike for the exercise, folks that's how they're going to get to the grocery store, and we're all riding bikes together.
Okay, and you are?
I'm Austin Hill. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Trustees.
And you've been involved in this since the beginning, I take it?
Yes, Pastor John and I just started talking about bikes. He's like, I know people who like to ride bikes. Let's do this, and it kind of became this. So that's how I started.
Just so happens that I know Pastor John from way back, but and I was kind of surprised when I first started investigating this. I looked and I said, "Oh, that's John Edgar. I know him," and he's kind of busy today, so he probably won't get a chance to talk to him. So, what's your role? What do you do here at the shop?
I guess just as on the board, just spreading the word and the vision of Bikes for All People, and the fact that it's a third place for people who need to bike because that's their only form of transportation, and the people who just like to bike. So it's a good place where everyone can come together to build a better place.
And you're a rider yourself?
I am. I bike every day to work.
So you're a commuter?
Yes, I commute.
How far?
Not very far. I live like 2 blocks south of here, and I work right next door at the rescue mission.
Oh, okay. So, but you do commute. How about you? Are you a cyclist?
Yeah, I commute by bike. I'm at OSU right now, but both of us are South Side residents, so for us it's a really great thing to have a shop right here on the South Side to get our repairs done, to get fixes done, to buy an extra light when we need it. Real convenient for us.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sport.
And you are?
I'm Ed Miner. I'm the Executive Director of Bikes for All People.
The one question I have is, why does a church have a bike shop?
Well, the Church for All People that we're associated with is in a neighborhood where a lot of the people use bike as their only means of transportation. Sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it's by circumstance, and they can't afford other means of transportation. And so the church saw that people needed a reliable, predictable place to be able to fix their bikes or to get them fixed if people couldn't do it themselves. And so the idea came about that maybe we would open a bike shop that people could have access to, and we'd try to sell used bikes at very affordable prices, and then also have some retail that we would carry items that people need, like inner tubes and inexpensive tires. So it was really a kind of a social justice thing that people who rely on bikes for transportation for work and things like that would have a reliable, affordable place to work on bikes. So the other thing that this church is trying to do is create something called third places, where people from different socioeconomic backgrounds bridge gaps around common interests. And so we also want this to be a place where people who ride for transportation, who ride for recreation, and who ride for competition can come together and spend time together, work together, and talk about bikes.
Now, I looked over some of the bikes up front there, and I see some rather fantastic prices, low prices, I mean. How does this work? People are donating bikes? Or
Right. All of the bikes that we get are donated. We don't spend any money buying bicycles for a lot of different reasons. But the community development and Church for All People has a lot of support from local congregations, and people are interested in donating bikes to the store so that we can sell them at reasonable prices.
now, having done a little bike mechanical work myself, I look at this wall back here, and I think there's a lot of people who watch this show who would kill for these tools here. How did that come about?
The tools were paid for by a grant from the Columbus Health Department. The Columbus Health Department has a part of its organization called the Institute for Healthy Living, and they try to encourage people to do things that foster a healthy lifestyle, and they were interested in what we were trying to do in the shop, and so they gave us a grant to buy a work stand and a set of tools. And the other work stand that we have was actually paid for by a grant from the Easton Foundation, which is one of the big shopping centers here in Columbus. We're building a partnership with REI, which is one of their stores, and so the Shopping Center Foundation gave us a grant to buy a nice work stand. So yeah, we have nice tools, and it's a combination of grant funding and also some donations from people.
And my REI number is 146411.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what
That's
mine
a
is.
long way back there.
Yeah, mine's pretty low too. I got mine when I lived in Atlanta back in like 1992 or something like that. So yeah, but
Well,
yeah, they just opened 2 stores here in Columbus. In fact, on December 6th, which is a Saturday coming up here, they're going to actually hold a bike donation drive for us in the parking lot at their Easton store. So you're going to be able to bring a bike, donate it to our shop, and they're going to give you a coupon for 20% off merchandise in their store on that day. So.
well, that's quite a set of tools you have there, I must say.
I'm
That's
still working on it
that's
a little
very
bit, but-
impressive.
Yeah.
So, people can come in here and work on their own bikes. Is that true?
That is
Use your
absolute-
tool.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, when we have when the shop is open, if there's a work stand available, you can come in and work on your own bike and use our tools. And as long as you don't ask me to do too much of the work, it's free. So yeah.
So if I come in here and say I got a flat tire, can you show me how to fix it? You'll do that?
I'll generally show people how to do things, yeah, without charging them. We do a lot of free repairs. We do them for fee as well, but yeah. So I do free repairs. I help people fix their own bikes and give them pointers and technical assistance while they're taking their bike apart. Make sure they know how to put it back together.
You know, I look at some of the newer bikes around here, and I don't know if I'd know how to go about fixing some of these. They have equipment on I haven't seen before.
Yeah, we don't get a whole lot of newer bikes. The newest bike I work on is my own. So, most of the bikes that we work on are older bikes that are donated to us. So, the nicer bikes that we have are bikes that are donated from us by guys like the Major Taylors, who they buy a new bike and they give us one of their old ones. So we get we've seen a few bikes like this Lotus right here. That's a really nice bike, but the equipment is, the same as the stuff I worked on when I worked in a shop in the 80s. So, but yeah, the newer stuff on bikes actually is interesting, though. Once you know how it works, it's actually a lot easier to work on. Most of the bearings are sealed bearing things. You don't have ball bearings falling out of everything when you take it apart. And as long as you know how to torque things that are made out of carbon and things like that, the newer bikes are actually a lot easier to work on if you know how they come apart and go back together.
And I mentioned the other day to my wife that I loaned my good tire pump out, and it never came back. And I think she's got her eye on one.
I think she's got an eye on a pump up there for me. Yeah. So
she asked if that was any good pump, and I said, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good pump. I'm hoping she leaves with that today. Yeah.
And how did you get involved in this, Ed?
John Edgar has worked with my wife. My wife works for the United Methodist Church, and John is a United Methodist pastor who is the pastor and chief operating officer of Church and Community Development for All People. He saw her at a meeting one day and said, "Hey, is your husband still ride bikes?" And I knew John. I used to live on the south side around this area. John and I we kind of used to be neighbors, and so he was aware that I rode bikes a lot. And my wife says, "Well, yeah, he still rides bike a little bit." And I was at the point with the job I had before where I was kind of done with it. And so I came down one day in May and talked to John about what he was interested in doing, and it was very similar to some ideas I had about things I would be interested in, and it was just sort of a right place, right time. And I'm an ordained minister, I'm a licensed social worker, and I'm a bike rider and a bike mechanic, and that stuff all sort of converges in this shop. And so I was a good person for this, and I was in the right place at the right time.
My wife and I have a word, we call it serendipity.
Yeah, it was serendipitous for sure.
Well, more on serendipity. All of a sudden, a light goes off in my head as I'm talking to you with your name. Your wife is Sarah Stickley Minor.
D. Stickley Minor.
D. Stickley.
Sarah's my daughter.
Yeah, okay. D. And her father and I grew up together.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard you say Potsdam when you walked in. I've ridden my bike through Potsdam a few times.
There's less than 1,000 people in the world who've ever heard of Potsdam, Ohio.
Probably, yeah. Most of them are Stickleys.
It's quite a well family. I know her uncles who are farmers there in the area, and be cousins now.
Yeah, her cousin Denny and Ned and Dan all still farm in that area. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing, and we thank you for taking this time to to talk with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
Thanks
this is
for
wonderful.
coming up
Yeah.
and trying to help get the word out about what we're trying to do here.
We'll try to do that, and thanks a lot, Ed.
Yeah. Thanks, Lee.
Well, thank you once again for watching tonight. Again, I'm sorry for the little confusion about focusing. I hope you enjoyed it just the same. There are several links on the show notes. If you're watching this on the website, OhioRAAMShow.com, the show notes are right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube or one of the embedded sites, you will have to go to OhioRAAMShow.com to get these links. In the links, you're going to find several things that we mentioned. You'll see a link to the Major Taylor Bicycle Club. You'll see a link to Bikes for All People. You'll see some other links there as well that relate to the show that we did this evening. Now, if you like what this group is doing here in Columbus, Ohio, and you would like to donate a bicycle to them, the best way to do is to go to their website, and again, the best way to find it is OhioRAAMShow.com. You'll see that address there on the screen. Go to OhioRAAMShow.com, and you'll see links there on this. This will be show number 67. While you're there, we would appreciate it if you would leave a comment. There's a place you can do that. If you'd like to have information on future shows, there's a place where you can leave your email address, and we will notify you when future shows are published. That email address won't go anyplace else but to us, so you don't need to worry about getting messages from strange places for how to make a fortune. That won't happen. Not from us, it won't. Also, if you have followed us on Facebook, we would appreciate you might give us a like there or a share. If you follow us on Google+, we would appreciate you clicking that little plus button next to this show. If you see us on Twitter, we would appreciate a retweet of the show. The purpose of this is to simply grow the audience of the show, but it's not to solve my ego problems. I do have ego problems, but that's not the purpose of doing this. The purpose is to get the word out about the cycling community, ultra cycling, and the race across America. And by doing that, you help to share that word. We thank all of you for being with us tonight. Or whenever it is you watch this, we thank you for being with us. And goodbye.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.